Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Aleichem, Assalamu Alaikum. Welcome to Job chapter 36, verse 17. Basically, the video title should be Answering a Question from Biblical Hermeneutics. I found this to be an interesting question, just at a glance. So let's just read it and read their answer, or their question rather. So the question is as follows. In Job 36, verse 17, why is Elihu trying to convince Job that his suffering is God's judgment for being wicked? And it states here in the Masoretic, indeed he, Elohim, would have brought you out of dire distress, into a broad place where there is no restraint. And what is set on your table would be full of richness, but you are filled with the judgment. Whose judgment? Elohim's. Why? Due to the wicked, or I should say, do the wicked. It's rendered to the wicked. The wicked are owed this. Judgment and justice take hold of you. So he's implying that, Job, you are wicked. We know by reading chapters 1 and 2 why Job is suffering his ordeal. We also know that Job's suffering is described by Elohim in chapter 2, verse 3, as being without cause. So there's no reason. We know that Job is described twice by Elohim as my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears Elohim and shuns evil. So based on what we know from the beginning of the book, why is Elihu trying to convince Job that his suffering is God's judgment for being wicked? Why does Elihu characterize Job's suffering as justice? Why is Elihu adamant that Job understand he is being punished for sin when that idea does not comport or conform with the premise of the story? Why would Elihu say these things? So let's look at one of the answers, just one. Actually, let's look at these footnotes. That is the point of the book. It was commonly believed this was the case, and the story of Job shows that the common belief was untrue. Okay, I agree. All right, let's just look at the first answer. In Job 36, verse 17, Elihu is not accusing Job of being wicked. Are you sure? Rather, he warns that Job's combative self-defensive against his three friends risks aligning him with the wicked. This echoes Elihu's earlier rebuke, answering like a wicked man. Okay, so that's one possibility. Let's keep reading. One of the central themes in Elihu's speech is that suffering can serve as a means of restoring one's relationship with Elohim. Satan's challenge was to prove that humans only worship God when life is favorable, but will curse him in adversity. Tragically, Satan's claim is not entirely unfounded. We do witness believers losing faith in the middle of suffering. Elihu distinguishes between two responses to suffering: those who humble themselves are able to hear the Lord, allowing his Spirit to work within them, leading them out of affliction. Those who reject God's discipline and suffering perish without knowledge, and their lives are cut short. Had Elihu not intervened, Job might have sunk deeper into self-righteousness. Again, that's a false narrative. As the heated debate escalated, Elihu's speech affirms the truth of Job 36:7. He, Elohim, does not take his eyes off the righteous. In that critical moment, on the verge of falling into true wickedness, Elihu's words served as a divine safeguard. His speech preserved Job from judgment. Job's silence throughout Elihu's discourse suggests a posture of humility, preparing him to receive the words of Elohim that follows. And actually, I would agree with this notion that he is a type of divine safeguard. So let's look at that specific verse in question and compare it with the Septuagint. So in the Masoretic, but thou hast fulfilled the judgment of the wicked. Judgment and justice take hold on thee. So he is saying that. He's saying, Job, you're being judged because you're wicked. It's pretty straightforward. God would have removed you out of the strait. He would have taken you out of your affliction. But you are wicked, essentially. And not even a great ransom can deliver you. What is the Septuagint saying? There is a deep, we have to look in the context. It's talking about Satan the devil. He has also enticed you, meaning saved you, out of the mouth of the enemy. There is a deep gulf and a rushing stream beneath it, and your table came down full of fatness. Judgment shall not fail from the righteous. So repeating what I presented in chapter 36, this is to explain that this is a cataclysmic difference. So Elohim has led Job out of the mouth of the enemy. Because Elohim told Satan and set the boundary, you can do this, but you have to spare his life. He set the boundaries. He set the stage for Job to be led out of the mouth of the enemy, to be saved out of the mouth of the enemy by setting these boundaries, including up to this point in the story. So the mouth of the enemy, Satan's goal is to have Job to sin, to curse God, not bless God. And recall the dare was, will Job bless you to your face? ? So Elohim has saved you, Job, out of Satan's jaws. That is what is being described in the Septuagint in verse 17. He's not saying, as the Masoretic is trying to push this narrative, that Job is evil, he sinned, and Elohim would have saved him and would have rewarded you, but he did not. Let's just look at 17 one more time. There's a deep gulf, a rushing stream beneath it. So this is talking about what Job lived through. This is his life experience, how his life was turned topsy-turvy, was subverted. Judgment shall not fail from the righteous. So Elihu is encouraging Job that Elohim will judge rightly for you, Job. He's going to do what's right for you. He's going to do what's right in your case. Verses, even so, again, like that Substack question asked, he would have removed you out of the straight into a broad place where there is no straightness. That which would be set on your table shall be full of fatness. Verses, you have the Masoretic again saying, you have fulfilled the judgment of the wicked. Judgment and justice take hold on you. In other words, Job, you are the wicked. You are of the wicked, and so judgment and justice is coming for you. Condemnation is coming for you. This is a curse of impending judgment, calling on this, on Job's life, calling on doom from Elohim. So I rest my case. Basically, the Septuagint does not say what is being expressed, that Elihu is trying to convince Job that his suffering is God's judgment for being wicked. The Masoretic is pushing a narrative that doesn't exist, pushing a narrative and putting words not only in Elihu's mouth, but even Elohim's mouth. It does not exist. It's saying something completely opposite, you could even say. So two very different narratives, two very different stories, and that's why the Septuagint is the authoritative voice of Scripture, as it was in 250 BC and as it should be even in 2026 AD. So thank you very much for your time. Till next time, I bid you all shalom aleichem, assalamu alaikum, irini mazisu, pax vobiscum, peace be unto you, and Maranatha.